Admiral Zexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the small blue planet through the massive viewing screen. His 4 eyes studied the world that hung in the dark like a jewel. Earth. That was what the local beings called their home. He had conquered 700 worlds in his long life. Each time, the pattern was the same. His ships would arrive. The local beings would see his massive fleet. They would panic. They would beg. They would surrender. Then the Krillian Empire would take everything they wanted. Zexthor's ships were beautiful and deadly. Each one looked like a giant crystal, clear and sharp. They could cut through space at speeds that broke the normal rules of physics. Their weapons could turn entire cities into glass in seconds. 10,000 of these ships now surrounded the small solar system. It was the largest fleet Zexthor had ever commanded. The Empire wanted to make sure there would be no problems with this conquest. On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison walked into the war room deep under the Pentagon. The room was full of screens showing numbers and maps. Officers sat at desks, their faces pale and worried. The air smelled like coffee and fear. Jake looked at the main screen. It showed the alien ships spread out across the edge of their solar system. Each red dot on the screen was a ship bigger than any building on Earth. There were so many dots that they looked like stars. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. Colonel Lisa Brown turned from her station. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she held her coffee cup. "The aliens sent their message 3 hours ago, sir. They want our answer in 72 hours. Jake nodded. He had already seen the message. The aliens spoke perfect English, which made everything more frightening. They had been watching Earth for years, learning about humans before they arrived. The message was simple. Surrender completely or be destroyed. No fighting, no negotiation. Just give up or die. President Linda Hayes sat in the Oval Office, staring at the same message on her desk. She had been president for 2 years. She had dealt with wars, natural disasters, and economic problems. But nothing had prepared her for this. Her chief of staff, Robert Clark, sat across from her. "The military says we have no chance in a direct fight, Madam President. Their ships are too advanced. Their weapons are too powerful." Linda looked out the window at the White House lawn. Children were playing in the distance, unaware that their world might end in 3 days. "What about evacuation? Can we get people off the planet?" Robert shook his head. "We don't have enough ships. We could maybe save a few thousand people. But there are 8 billion humans on Earth." At the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado, Dr. Katie Brooks worked in her laboratory. The room was filled with computers and strange machines that hummed with power. She had been working on her project for 5 years. Now she had 3 days to make it work or humanity would die. Katie was young for such an important job. At 32, she was the smartest physicist in the world. Her research into quantum mechanics had already changed how humans understood space and time, but she had never tried to use her work as a weapon. Her assistant, Dr. Paul Green, brought her another cup of coffee. "Any luck with the calculations?" he asked. Katie rubbed her tired eyes. "The math works. The computer models work, but we've never tested it on anything bigger than a mouse." "What happens if we're wrong?" Katie looked at him with sad eyes. "Then we all die anyway. At least this way we have a chance." Captain Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance. His ship was small compared to the alien vessels, but it was the most advanced ship humans had ever built. It could move through space without being seen by most sensors. It could strike fast and disappear. Ryan had been in the Navy for 15 years. He had fought pirates and terrorists. He had commanded ships in 2 small wars. But he had never faced an enemy like this. His sister Katie was the scientist working on the secret weapon. Ryan did not know exactly what she was building, but he knew it was humanity's only hope. "Sir," his communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Davis, called out. "We're getting reports from around the world. People are panicking. Some cities are seeing riots." Ryan nodded. He had expected this. When people learned that aliens wanted to destroy their world, some would lose their minds with fear. Back in the Pentagon, Jake Morrison met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. General Frank Miller represented the Army. Admiral Susan Taylor spoke for the Navy. General Chris Johnson was from the Air Force. General Mary Wilson commanded the Space Force. "Options?" Jake asked. General Miller spoke first. "We could fight. We have nuclear weapons. We have some space-based weapons, but their technology is centuries ahead of ours." Admiral Taylor agreed. "Our best ships are like wooden boats compared to their vessels. We might damage a few of their smaller ships before they destroy us completely." General Johnson was more hopeful. "We have some experimental weapons, railguns, particle beams, fusion rockets. Maybe we could surprise them." General Wilson had the most knowledge about space warfare. "I've studied their formation. They're staying far from Earth. They think they're safe out there. If we could somehow get close to their ships, we might have a chance." Jake listened to all of them. Then he made his decision. "We're not going to surrender, and we're not going to run. We're going to fight." The room was quiet for a moment. Then General Miller asked the question they were all thinking. "How do we fight 10,000 ships with what we have?" Jake smiled for the first time in days. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had decided to do something impossible. "We're going to cheat." Meanwhile, on his flagship, Admiral Zexthor received reports from his scouts. The human military was moving. Ships were launching from Earth. Weapons were being prepared. But the numbers made no sense. "How many ships do they have?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Less than 200 space-capable vessels, Admiral. Most are small and lightly armed." Zexthor laughed. The sound was like breaking glass. 200 ships against 10,000? These humans are even more stupid than I thought, but something bothered him. In all his conquests, the local beings had always tried to talk. They sent messages begging for mercy. They offered to trade. They tried to negotiate. The humans had sent no messages after the first day. Earth was completely silent. "Have they responded to our ultimatum?" Zexthor asked. "No, Admiral. No response at all." Zexthor studied the blue planet again. In his experience, silence meant two things. Either the enemy had given up completely, or they were planning something desperate. He decided the humans had simply accepted their fate. After all, what could such a primitive species do against the might of the Krillian Empire? Time passed slowly on both sides. On Earth, families spent time together. Some people prayed, others drank. Many just waited. But in secret places around the world, humans worked. Scientists checked calculations. Engineers built weapons. Soldiers prepared for a battle they could not win. President Hayes made one final broadcast to the world. She spoke simply and clearly. "We will not surrender our world to invaders. We will not abandon our children to slavery. We will fight. And if we must die, we will die as free humans." The message was broadcast to every country on Earth. It was also broadcast into space, where the alien ships waited. Admiral Zexthor heard the message. He understood the words, but not the meaning. Why would these beings choose death over surrender? It made no sense to him. The 72 hours passed. The deadline arrived. The aliens waited for Earth's surrender. They received only silence. The silence from Earth lasted exactly 12 hours after the deadline passed. Then everything changed. Dr. Katie Brooks stood in her underground laboratory, her hands moving over the control panel. The room around her buzzed with power. Cables, as thick as her arm, carried electricity from 3 nuclear power plants. The air tasted like metal and lightning. "Power levels at 90%, called out Dr. Paul Green from his station. Numbers flowed across his screens like water. Katie, looked at the main display. It showed their solar system with all the alien ships marked as red dots. Her machine could reach any point in space within 1,000,000 miles of Earth. The aliens thought they were safe beyond Pluto. They were wrong. "Beginning quantum field generation," Katie said. Her finger moved toward the activation switch. In space, Admiral Zexthor stood on his bridge, waiting for the human government to contact him. Surely they would beg now. All species begged when they realized how hopeless their situation was. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the third planet." Zexthor turned his 4 eyes toward the display. "What kind of energy?" "Unknown, sir. The readings don't match any known technology." Before Zexthor could respond, space itself began to change around his fleet. Katie pressed the switch. Reality twisted. The first sign was the stars. From the bridge of every Krillian ship, the stars suddenly moved. Constellations that had been the same for millions of years shifted and changed. Navigation systems screamed warnings as their reference points vanished. Then the ships themselves began to move. 3,000 Krillian vessels arranged in perfect formation beyond Pluto found themselves scattered across the solar system. Some appeared near Mars, others materialized close to Jupiter. A few unlucky ships found themselves inside the asteroid belt. The quantum displacement field that Katie had created bent space like a sheet of rubber. Ships that had been next to each other were now millions of miles apart. The careful coordination of the alien fleet was destroyed in seconds. Admiral Zexthor felt his ship lurch as space twisted around him. Emergency lights flashed red across his bridge. His crew struggled to understand what had happened. "Report!" he shouted. "Sir, we've been displaced. Our position is now..." "We're near the 4th planet. Mars, the humans call it." "How is that possible?" "Unknown." "Sir, our ships don't have damage, but we're no longer in formation. I'm receiving similar reports from across the fleet." Zexthor stared at his tactical display. His perfect fleet formation looked like someone had taken a puzzle and thrown the pieces across a room. Half his ships were too far away to provide support to the others. But the humans were not finished. Captain Ryan Brooks watched his sensor display from the bridge of the USS Defiance. His stealth ship hung in the shadow of Earth's moon, invisible. To alien sensors, around him 11 other ships waited. "Katie's device worked," reported Lieutenant Amy Davis. "The alien fleet is scattered." Ryan nodded. His sister had done the impossible. Now it was his turn. "All ships, this is Defiance. Begin attack run. Remember, we only get one chance at this." 12 human ships left their hiding places and accelerated toward the confused alien vessels. They were tiny compared to the Krillian warships, but they carried humanity's desperation. The USS Defiance and her sister ships had been built for this moment. Each ship carried experimental weapons that human scientists had developed in secret. Fusion rockets that could punch through alien armor, particle beam weapons that moved at the speed of light. Most importantly, each ship carried a crew that had volunteered for a mission they knew they would not survive. Captain Lucy Chen commanded the converted mining ship Iron Phoenix. Her vessel had once carried rare metals from asteroid mines. Now it carried something more dangerous. Lucy looked at the alien destroyer that hung in space ahead of her. The Krillian ship was beautiful and deadly, its crystal hull catching starlight like a diamond. It was also alone, separated from its fleet by Katie's quantum displacement. "Target locked," her weapons officer reported. "Fire everything," Lucy ordered. Iron Phoenix opened fire with every weapon she carried. Railgun rounds, moving at incredible speed, struck the alien ship's hull. Particle beams carved lines of fire across its surface. Missiles with nuclear warheads exploded like tiny suns. The Krillian destroyer's shields flared bright blue, absorbing most of the damage. But the ship had been caught by surprise. Its crew was still trying to figure out what had happened to their fleet. Lucy smiled grimly. Ram the ship. Her crew did not argue. They had known this moment would come. Iron Phoenix accelerated directly toward the alien vessel. Her fusion reactor pushed beyond safe limits. The collision was visible from Earth. Iron Phoenix struck the Krillian destroyer at half the speed of light. Both ships became a brief star that outshone Venus. Across the solar system, similar battles were taking place. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and disappeared. The Krillians tried to fight back, but they were confused and scattered. Captain Danny Martinez commanded the orbital defense platform Liberty Station. His platform was nothing more than a large railgun with life support attached. It had been built in secret over the past 5 years, hidden on the far side of Earth's moon. Danny watched through his telescopes as alien ships tried to regroup near Jupiter. They were forming up for an attack run toward Earth. His job was to make sure they never got the chance. "Target the lead ship," he told his gunner. Liberty Station's railgun was the largest weapon humans had ever built. It fired tungsten rounds the size of telephone poles at speeds that made light look slow. The alien ship in Danny's crosshairs was 2 million miles away. The gun fired. The tungsten round took 8 minutes to reach its target. When it hit, the alien ship simply came apart. There was no explosion, no fire. One moment there was a ship. The next moment there was expanding cloud of debris. "Target destroyed," his gunner reported. "Reloading." But they would not get a chance to fire again. 3 alien ships had detected Liberty Station's location. Energy beams lanced out across space, and Danny Martinez died doing his duty. "Admiral." Jake Morrison watched the battle from his command center deep under the Pentagon. Reports came in from around the solar system. Human ships were dying, but they were taking alien vessels with them. "Casualties?" he asked. Colonel Lisa Brown read from her tablet. "We've lost 40 ships in the first hour, but we've destroyed over 300 alien vessels." Jake nodded. The exchange rate was terrible, but it was better than anyone had hoped. More importantly, the aliens were starting to understand that this would not be an easy conquest. On his flagship near Mars, Admiral Zexthor finally grasped what was happening. The humans were not trying to win a conventional battle. They were trying to cause as much damage as possible before they died. "These creatures are insane," he told his second-in-command. "They're throwing away their lives." "Yes, Admiral. But they're also destroying our ships." Zexthor studied his tactical display. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost nearly 1,000 ships. The human fleet was almost gone, but they had made the Krillians pay a terrible price. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Fall back to minimum safe distance. We need to regroup." Captain Ashley Stone piloted her fighter through the debris field that had once been humanity's largest space station. Her small ship was fast and hard to hit, but it was running out of fuel and ammunition. She spotted an alien cruiser limping away from the battle. Its hull was cracked and leaking atmosphere. Ashley armed her ship's self-destruct system. She had grown up dreaming of flying among the stars. She had never imagined she would die out here, but at least she would die fighting. Her fighter struck the alien cruiser just behind its main engine. The explosion tore both ships apart, adding 2 more lights to the constellation of destruction that now filled the solar system. Back on Earth, people watched the battle through telescopes and satellites. They saw their ships dying one by one. They saw the alien fleet slowly pulling back, and they knew that humanity had drawn first blood. Dr. Katie Brooks collapsed in her chair as her quantum displacement device finally shut down. The machine had used enough power to light a city for a year. But it had worked. It had scattered the alien fleet and given humanity a chance. "Katie," Dr. Paul Green said softly, "the preliminary reports are coming in. Your device worked perfectly." Katie looked up at him with tired eyes. "How many did we save?" "The battle's not over yet, but early estimates suggest we destroyed over 1,000 alien ships." Katie nodded. 1,000 ships out of 10,000. It was not enough, but it was a start. In space, the surviving alien ships regrouped beyond the orbit of Jupiter. "Admiral, Zexthor counted his losses and felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Fear. These humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They used their own ships as weapons. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. They had somehow moved his entire fleet across space, using technology that should not exist. And they were still not talking. The silence from Earth continued. No surrender, no negotiation, no begging for mercy, just deadly, determined silence. Admiral Zexthor had lived for 300 years. He had conquered worlds, destroyed fleets, and brought entire civilizations to their knees. But he had never felt the cold touch of fear until now. His tactical display showed the horrible truth. 1,047 Krillian ships had been destroyed in the first battle. The human fleet was gone, but it had cost him more ships than he had lost in the previous 50 conquests combined. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported, "we're receiving data from the ships that engage the humans directly." "Show me." The display changed to show recordings from various battles. Zexthor watched human ships ramming his vessels at impossible speeds. He saw their fighters explode themselves against his cruisers. He witnessed their orbital platforms firing weapons that should have torn the platforms apart from the recoil. These beings fight without regard for their own survival, his second-in-command observed. Zexthor nodded slowly. "Send a message to the human government. Tell them we are willing to discuss terms." On Earth, President Linda Hayes sat in her underground command center. The message from the aliens appeared on her screen. For the first time in the war, the invaders wanted to talk. "They're scared," Admiral Jake Morrison said. "They expected an easy victory. Instead, they got a bloody nose." Linda read the alien message again. "They offered to spare major population centers if humanity would surrender their military and submit to limited occupation. What's your recommendation, Admiral?" Jake's face was hard as stone. "We don't negotiate with invaders, Madam President. They came here to destroy us. The only conversation they deserve is the sound of our weapons firing." Linda nodded and deleted the message without responding. Earth's silence continued. In his laboratory hidden beneath the Colorado mountains, Dr. Marcus Webb worked frantically on humanity's next surprise. His team had been studying the wreckage of alien ships that had crashed on Earth during the first battle. "The hull material is incredible," he told his assistant, Dr. Jennifer Liu. "It's stronger than anything we've ever seen, but it has one weakness." "What kind of weakness?" Marcus pointed to his computer screen, which showed molecular diagrams. "Their crystal hulls are designed to absorb energy weapons and deflect physical impacts, but they can't handle rapid temperature changes. Heat them up fast enough, and they become brittle as glass." Dr. Jennifer Liu looked at the data. "How do we heat up something in the vacuum of space?" Marcus smiled. "We use their own weapons against them. Colonel Danny Martinez Jr. had named himself after the hero who died at Liberty Station. He was only 25 years old, but he commanded the rebuilt Earth defense grid. Humanity had spent the last month turning every major city into a weapons platform. New York's skyscrapers now bristled with railgun batteries. London's ancient buildings hid fusion missile silos. Tokyo's towers were topped with particle beam arrays. Every major population center had become a fortress. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "alien ships are moving in-system. They're coming straight for Earth." Danny looked at his tactical display. 7,000 Krillian ships were arranged in a tight formation, advancing slowly and carefully. Toward humanity's homeworld, they had learned from the first battle. This time, they would not be scattered or surprised. "Send the signal to all defense stations," Danny ordered. "Humanity's second lesson begins now." Captain Helen Rodriguez piloted her fighter through Earth's atmosphere, leading a squadron of atmospheric defense fighters. These ships were smaller and faster than the space fighters that had died in the first battle. They could hide in Earth's weather systems and strike without warning. "Target spotted," she reported over the radio. "Alien scout ship, altitude 50,000 feet." The Krillian scout had entered Earth's atmosphere to study the planet's defenses. It moved slowly, scanning cities and military bases. The aliens thought they were safe in their advanced ship. Helen's squadron attacked from inside a thunderstorm. Lightning masked their approach until they were close enough to fire. Fusion rockets streaked up from the clouds, slamming into the scout ship's hull. The alien vessel tried to escape back to space, but Helen was faster. Her fighter intercepted the damaged scout and rammed it at full speed. Both ships crashed into the Pacific Ocean in a ball of fire. Admiral Zexthor watched from his flagship as his scout ships were destroyed one by one. The humans were using their own planet's atmosphere as a weapon, hiding in storms and clouds. "Sir, we're losing scouts. Faster than we can deploy them," his tactical officer reported. "Then we attack directly," Zexthor decided. "All ships, advance to orbital bombardment range. Prepare to glass their major cities." The Krillian fleet moved toward Earth in perfect formation. Their crystal hulls gleamed in the sunlight as they prepared to reduce humanity's civilization to ash and glass. They never reached bombardment range. Dr. Marcus Webb's discovery had been shared with every defense station on Earth. When the alien fleet came within range, every human weapon opened fire at once. But these were not the same weapons the aliens had faced before. These were specially designed to exploit the weakness in Krillian hull technology. From New York, thermal lances reached out across space. These weapons fired concentrated beams of heat that could melt steel in seconds. When they struck the alien ships, the crystal hulls absorbed the energy and began to glow. From London, cryo missiles streaked upward. These weapons carried liquid nitrogen warheads that exploded at absolute zero temperature. When they struck the superheated alien hulls, the thermal shock was devastating. From Tokyo, sonic disruptors sent waves of vibration through space. These weapons turned the alien hull's own strength against them, setting up resonance frequencies that shattered the crystal structures from within. The first alien ship to die came apart like a breaking wine glass. Its hull, superheated by thermal lances and then flash frozen by cryo missiles, simply fell to pieces. Then another ship died, and another. Admiral Zexthor watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart by weapons that should not work in space. The humans had somehow learned to use temperature as a weapon, exploiting the one flaw in Krillian technology. "Retreat!" he ordered. "Fall back beyond weapons range." But it was too late for many of his ships. The thermal weapons had a range of millions of miles. Earth's defense grid could strike targets anywhere in the inner solar system. Captain Lisa Park commanded the rebuilt USS Defiance II. Her ship was hiding behind one of Jupiter's moons, waiting for the right moment to strike. She had learned from the first battle. This time the humans would be smarter. "Alien ship detected," her sensor officer reported. "It's damaged and alone." Lisa studied the tactical display. A Krillian destroyer was limping away from Earth, its hull cracked and leaking atmosphere. It was trying to reach the main alien fleet. "Plot an intercept course," she ordered. "But don't approach directly. Use Jupiter's gravity to mask our approach." Defiance 2 swung around Jupiter's largest moon, using the planet's gravity to accelerate without using her engines. The maneuver was dangerous, but it allowed them to approach the alien ship undetected. "Target locked," her weapons officer reported. "Fire." The rebuilt Defiance carried the latest human weapons. Thermal lances superheated the alien hull while cryo torpedoes struck seconds later. The Krillian destroyer's crystal structure shattered like glass hitting concrete. But Lisa's victory was short-lived. 3 more alien ships appeared on her sensors, moving to intercept her. "Ma'am, we can't outrun them," her navigation officer reported. Lisa looked at her crew. They were young, brave, and about to die. But they would not die for nothing. "Set course for the nearest alien ship," she ordered. "Full ramming speed." "Ma'am, that's suicide." "No," Lisa said quietly. "That's humanity." Defiance 2 accelerated. Toward the lead alien ship, her fusion reactor pushed beyond safe limits. The Krillians fired their energy weapons, but the human ship kept coming. At the last second, Lisa activated the ship's self-destruct. The explosion was visible from Earth. 4 ships died in that moment. 1 human, 3 alien. Colonel Sam Wright commanded the Mars Defense Station, humanity's first permanent base on another planet. The station was small and lightly defended, but it controlled the approaches to Earth through the inner solar system. "Sir, alien ships are trying to flank Earth through Mars orbit," his sensor operator reported. Sam looked at his tactical display. 50 Krillian ships were attempting to circle around Mars and attack Earth from an unexpected angle. It was a good strategy. Unfortunately for them, humans had been expecting it. "Activate the minefield," Sam ordered. Mars' orbit was now filled with thousands of small mines, each one carrying a thermal warhead. They had been deployed over the past month, invisible to alien sensors until activated. The mines came to life as the alien ships passed through them. Thermal explosions lit up space around Mars as Krillian hulls were superheated and then exposed to the cold vacuum of space. 20 alien ships died in the minefield. The survivors tried to retreat, but they ran into Mars Defense Station's weapons. Sam's railguns and thermal lances finished what the mines had started. Admiral Zexathor stood on his bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed his fleet's destruction. In 3 days of fighting, he had lost over 3,000 ships. The humans had somehow turned their entire solar system into a weapons platform. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a message from Admiral Zexathor stood alone in his private quarters, staring out at the stars." His reflection looked back at him from the crystal window, showing a being who had aged decades in just a few days. 4,000 ships. He had lost 4,000 ships to a species that barely had space travel just months ago. The tactical reports lay scattered across his desk. Each one told the same impossible story. Human weapons that should not work in space. Human tactics that defied all military logic. Human fighters who treated their own lives as weapons to be spent. But what disturbed him most was the silence. Every species the Krillian Empire had conquered tried to communicate during the fighting. They sent messages begging for mercy. They offered to negotiate. They transmitted cultural exchanges hoping to find common ground. The humans had stopped talking completely. No surrender offers, no peace negotiations, no diplomatic messages. Earth's radio transmissions had gone dark, except for military communications that the Krillians could not decode. It was as if humanity had decided that words were useless, as if they believed that only violence could speak to their invaders. On Earth, President Linda Hayes walked through the ruins of Washington, D.C. The city had been evacuated weeks ago. Its government moved to underground bunkers. But Linda needed to see the surface world one more time before the final battle. The streets were empty except for military vehicles. Every building had been converted into part of the war effort. Museums housed weapon factories. Schools served as training centers. Even the White House had been turned into a communications hub for the global defense network. "Madam President," General Claire Davis said as she caught up to Linda, "you shouldn't be up here. It's not safe." Linda looked at the sky, where distant explosions marked ongoing battles in Earth's orbit. "How many more ships do they have, Claire?" "Our best estimate is 6,000, ma'am. They're regrouping beyond Jupiter, probably waiting for reinforcements." Linda nodded. "And how many ships do we have left?" Claire's voice was quiet. 43 combat-capable vessels, ma'am. The rest of our fleet is gone." They walked in silence for several minutes, through streets that had once been filled with tourists and politicians. Now they were empty, except for the 2 women who carried humanity's fate on their shoulders. "The aliens sent another message yesterday," Claire said. "They're offering to spare half our population if we surrender now." Linda. stopped walking. "What did you do with the message?" "The same thing we've done with all their messages. We deleted it without responding." Linda smiled for the first time in weeks. It was not a happy smile, but it was proud. "Good. Let them wonder what we're thinking." In her underground laboratory, Dr. Katie Brooks worked on humanity's final gambit. The quantum displacement device that had scattered the alien fleet was impressive, but it was nothing compared to what she was building now. "The power requirements are enormous," Dr. Paul Green said as he studied the calculations. "We'll need to tap into every nuclear reactor on the planet." Katie looked up from her work. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, and her hands shook from too much caffeine. "Will it work?" "The math says yes. But Katie, if you're wrong about this, the device could destroy Earth instead of saving it." Katie turned back to her calculations. "Then we better be right. The device she was building would create a quantum field large enough to affect an entire fleet. But instead of moving ships through space, it would move them through something far more dangerous. She was going to teleport the alien fleet into Earth's moon. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez had been shot down 3 times during the war. Each time, he had survived and returned to fight again. Now he sat in the cockpit of his 4th fighter, waiting for orders that might never come. His squadron was based in what had once been downtown Denver. The skyscrapers had been knocked down to make room for a military airfield. Fighter planes sat where office workers had once walked to their jobs. "Lieutenant," his radio crackled. "Report to Briefing Room Alpha." Sam walked across the makeshift base to a building that had once been a shopping mall. Inside, Colonel Janet Smith was addressing a group of pilots. All of them were young. All of them were volunteers. All of them knew they were probably going to die. "People," Colonel Smith said, "we have a new mission. Intelligence reports that the aliens are massing for a final attack. They're going to throw everything they have left at Earth in one massive assault." She pointed to a map of the solar system. 6,000 ships will be attacking from multiple directions. Our job is to make sure as few as possible reach the planet's surface. Sam raised his hand. "Ma'am, we only have 43 ships left. How are we supposed to stop 6,000? Colonel Smith looked at him with tired eyes. "We're not going to stop them, Lieutenant. We're going to slow them down long enough for the scientists to finish their work." The room fell silent. Every pilot understood what that meant. They were being asked to die to buy time for a weapon that might not even work. "Any questions?" Colonel Smith asked. Nobody spoke. They all understood their mission. Fly out into space. Attack the largest fleet in the galaxy. Die fighting. Captain Ryan Brooks had survived longer than any other human ship commander. His luck had held through 4 major battles and dozens of smaller engagements. But luck eventually ran out for everyone. His ship, the USS Defiance Through, hung in the shadow of one of Saturn's moons. Around him, the surviving ships of humanity's space fleet waited for their final orders. "This is Admiral Morrison," came the voice over the radio. "All ships, prepare for Operation Last Stand. The alien fleet is moving toward Earth. Our mission is to delay them as long as possible." Ryan looked at his crew. They were good people, smart, brave, and loyal. They deserved better than to die in a hopeless battle against impossible odds. But they were also human, and humans did not surrender their world without a fight. "All stations, this is Defiance 3, Ryan transmitted to the other ships. "Let's show these aliens what happens when they threaten humanity's home. 43 ships against 6,000. The math was simple. The outcome was certain. But math had never stopped humans before. Admiral Zexthor received the reports from his scouts with satisfaction. The human fleet was moving to intercept his ships, 43 vessels against his. Remaining 6,000, it would be a brief battle. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "human ships are approaching from multiple vectors. They appear to be attempting to surround our fleet." Zexthor studied the tactical display. The human formation made no sense. They were spreading their ships, too thin, attacking from too many directions at once. It was a strategy that guaranteed their defeat, unless they were planning something else. "Scan for unusual energy signatures," he ordered. "The humans have surprised us before." But his sensors detected nothing unusual. No quantum distortions, no hidden weapons, just 43 small ships flying towards certain destruction. "All ships, open fire when the humans come within range," Zexthor commanded. The battle began as expected. Human ships flew directly into the alien formation, firing everything they had. Krillian energy weapons responded, turning space into a light show of destruction. Captain Lucy Chen, commanding the mining ship Iron Phoenix II, led her squadron straight into the heart of the alien fleet. Her ships were heavily armored but slow, designed to survive long enough to ram alien vessels. "Target the command ships," she ordered over the radio. "Make them pay attention to us." Her squadron opened fire on the largest alien vessels, drawing their attention away from the smaller human ships that were trying to flank the formation. It was a suicide mission, but it bought precious time. Iron Phoenix II took hit after hit, her armor glowing red-hot from alien energy weapons. But Lucy kept flying, kept firing, kept fighting until her ship finally broke apart under the assault. She died as she had lived, protecting others and making the enemy pay. One by one, the human ships fell, but each one took alien vessels with them, and more importantly, each one bought time for Dr. Katie Brooks to complete her work. Deep underground, Katie watched her power readings climb toward the levels she needed. Nuclear reactors around the world were operating at maximum capacity, feeding power into her quantum displacement device. 90% power, Dr. Paul Green reported. Katie's hands moved across the control panel, making final adjustments. Through her sensors, she could track the battle raging in space above them. Human ships were dying. Her brother Ryan was up, there somewhere, fighting against impossible odds. 95%. She thought about all the people who had died in this war, the crews of the ships that had rammed alien vessels, the pilots who had turned their fighters into guided missiles, the soldiers who had manned defensive positions. They knew they could never leave. 98%. All those deaths would mean nothing if her device did not work. Humanity's final gamble rested on calculations that had never been tested at this scale. "Full power achieved," Paul reported. Katie's finger hovered over the activation switch. In space above them, the last human ships were making their final attacks against the alien fleet. On his flagship, Admiral Zexthor watched the tactical display as the final human ship exploded under his guns. 43 ships had attacked his fleet. All 43 had been destroyed, but they had cost him nearly. The new star in Earth's sky burned for 3 days before fading to a dim glow. Where once there had been Earth's moon and 6,000 alien warships, now there was only a sphere of compressed matter that physicists would study for decades to come. Dr. Katie Brooks stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Liberty Station, looking at what remained of humanity's ancient companion. The moon that had inspired poets and guided sailors was gone, replaced by her weapon. She had saved humanity, but the cost would be written across Earth's night sky forever. "Any regrets?" Dr. Paul Green asked as he joined her at the window. Katie touched the glass with her fingertips. "Ask me in 100 years. Below them, Earth was changing. The war had ended 6 months ago, but its effects would last forever. Humanity had learned that they were not alone in the universe and that most of their neighbors wanted them dead. President Linda Hayes had announced the formation of the Earth Defense Force 3 months after the alien fleet's destruction. Every nation on the planet had contributed resources, technology, and personnel. The age of separate countries fighting separate wars was over. Now there was only humanity versus the universe. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted to Supreme Commander of Human space forces walked through the construction yards that had once been the city of Detroit. Massive ships were taking shape in the industrial facilities that had been quickly converted from making cars to making warships. "How many will be ready by next year?" he asked Chief Engineer Barbara Wells. Barbara consulted her tablet. 40. Heavy cruisers, 15 carriers, and over 200 support vessels, all equipped with the new quantum displacement weapons. Jake nodded. The ships looked nothing like the vessels humanity had used during the war. These were purpose-built for space combat, designed by engineers who had learned hard lessons about fighting alien technology. And the crews? We have volunteers from every country. More than we can use, actually. It seems everyone wants to join the fleet that defeated the Krillian Empire. Captain Ryan Brooks had survived the final battle by pure chance. His ship had been too damaged to participate in the last attack, leaving him stranded near Saturn when Katie's weapon activated. Now he commanded the flagship of humanity's new space navy. The USS Defiance 4 was 10 times larger than any ship humans had built before the war. Its hull was made from salvaged alien materials, its weapons were based on quantum technology, and its crew was trained in the brutal fighting style that had won humanity's freedom. "Sir," his communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Davis, reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the outer system." Ryan looked at the main screen. A sleek ship unlike anything in human or Krillian design hung in space near the orbit of Neptune. It was beautiful and clearly advanced, but it was alone and making no aggressive moves. "Put them on screen," Ryan ordered. The face that appeared was humanoid, but clearly alien. Blue skin, large eyes, and features that seemed both ancient and wise. When it spoke, the words were translated by computers that had learned to decode alien languages from Krillian databases. "I am Ambassador Thale of the Nexus Coalition. I wish to speak with the leaders of humanity." Ryan looked at his crew. First, contact with a new alien species. After everything they had been through, it felt strange to meet aliens who wanted to talk instead of fight. "This is Captain Ryan Brooks of the Earth Defense Force. State your intentions." The alien's expression was difficult to read, but it seemed surprised. "I come seeking alliance, Captain Brooks. The galaxy has heard of your victory over the Krillian Empire. Many worlds that suffered under their rule wish to thank you." President Linda Hayes sat in the Situation Room, listening to the recording of humanity's first peaceful contact with an alien species. Around the table sat the leaders of the new Earth government, military commanders, and scientists. "What do we know about this Nexus Coalition?" she asked. Director of Intelligence Carol Martinez consulted her files. "Based on the information we've gathered from Krillian databases, they're a loose alliance of worlds that the Empire had been planning to conquer. Apparently, they've been fighting a losing war against the Krillians for decades. And now they want to be our friends because we destroyed their enemy?" "It appears so, Madam President. The question is, do we want friends?" Linda looked around the table. The war had changed all of them. They had learned that the universe was a dangerous place, full of species that would destroy humanity without a second thought. But they had also learned that humans were not helpless victims. They were capable of fighting back, of winning. "Set up the meeting," she decided. "But make it clear that we meet as equals, not as junior partners." Dr. Katie Brooks worked in her new laboratory, built in the ruins of what had once been New York City. Her research had taken a new direction since the war. Instead of building weapons, she was trying to understand the technology they had captured from the aliens. "The Krillian quantum drives are incredible," she told her assistant, Dr. Jennifer Liu. "With modifications, we could build ships that cross the galaxy in weeks instead of years." Jennifer looked at the alien technology with suspicious eyes. "Should we be using their science after what they tried to do to us?" Katie considered the question. The aliens had come to destroy humanity, but their technology could help humans defend themselves and explore the galaxy. "Knowledge is just knowledge," she said finally. It's what we do with it that matters. 3 months later, the first meeting between humanity and the Nexus Coalition took place in Earth's orbit. The alien delegation arrived in ships that dwarfed even humanity's new warships, but they came in peace. Ambassador Thale sat across from President Hayes in the conference room of Liberty Station. Between them was a table that had been built from metal salvaged from both human and alien ships destroyed in the war. "Your species has accomplished something remarkable," Thale said. "In all recorded history, no single world has ever defeated a full Krillian battle fleet." "We had help," Linda replied. "The Krillians underestimated us. They thought we would surrender without a fight." "Yes, we noticed that. Tell me, President Hayes, why did you stop all communication during the war? Most species try to negotiate, even as they fight." Linda's smile was cold as space. "We had nothing to say to invaders. Our weapons spoke for us." Thale seemed to understand. "The silence was intentional. You wanted them to wonder what you were planning. Fear is a weapon like any other. The Krillians came here expecting to conquer primitives. Instead, they found humans. There's a difference. The negotiations took weeks. The Nexus Coalition offered trade agreements, technology exchanges, and mutual defense treaties. In return, they wanted humanity to join their alliance against other aggressive species in the galaxy. General Claire Davis had been promoted to head of planetary defense. She advised caution during the negotiations. "We don't know these aliens any better than we knew the Krillians," she warned. "How do we know they won't turn on us once they get what they want?" Admiral Morrison had a different perspective. "Claire, we can't fight the entire galaxy alone. If there are species out there willing to work with us instead of trying to destroy us, we need to consider it." The debate continued for days. Some wanted to accept the alliance immediately. Others wanted to remain isolated until humanity was stronger. A few suggested conquering nearby star systems to create a buffer zone around Earth. In the end, President Hayes made the decision that would shape humanity's future. "We'll join their coalition," she announced, "but on our terms. We keep our independence, we keep our weapons, and we make it clear to everyone in the galaxy that Earth is not to be threatened." The treaty signing took place on the anniversary of the war's end. Representatives from dozens of worlds attended, watching as humanity officially joined the galactic community. But the ceremony was held in Earth's orbit, surrounded by the new ships of the Earth Defense Force. The message was clear. Humanity would work with others, but they would never be defenseless again. Captain Lisa Park, now commanding her own squadron of quantum-armed ships, led the first human expedition beyond the solar system. Their mission was to explore nearby star systems and establish listening posts. "It's strange," she told her crew as they prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel. "A year ago, we were fighting for our lives. Now we're exploring the galaxy." Her ship, the USS Avenger, was one of 50 vessels in the first wave of human expansion. Each carried the latest technology, the best crews, and the hard-won knowledge of how to fight in space. As they jumped into hyperspace, Lisa thought about all the people who had died to make this moment possible. The crews who had rammed alien ships, the pilots who had used their fighters as weapons, the scientists who had worked until they collapsed, to build humanity's salvation. Their sacrifice had given humanity the stars. Back on Earth, children who had been born during the war were growing up in a world that knew it was not alone. They learned about alien species in school. They studied quantum physics as a basic subject. They dreamed of exploring distant worlds and meeting strange civilizations. But they also learned about the war. They knew that their planet had been attacked by those who wanted to destroy them. They understood that the galaxy was dangerous and that humanity had to be strong to survive. Dr. Katie Brooks, now the head of Earth's Advanced Research Division, watched a new generation of scientists work,